Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. This is our last panel, really, before the closing of the GIS Summit. And thank you all for participating, being with us during these 2 days. We've really had absolutely incredible conversation crossing the whole gamut of issues and challenges and opportunities to move into a new era of sustainable growth. And I thought, since this is really going to be a discussion about integration, about how the different systemic issues, policy issues, but very importantly, how the roles and responsibilities of different sectors and dimensions of innovative activity come together to develop the agendas for growth. We know that by working and operating in stovepipes, not staying outside of our sections and economy, but moving more broadly is the only way we can make progress. So I want to start by drawing us back to really the flagship product of the GFCC, which I hope all of you have really taken the moment to read, because it's a very, very significant document, our global principles for sustainable growth. And very importantly, and I don't know if we did this by design or it's happened through the course of the discussion, the first principle that we have released this year is, and I quote, to build coalitions and public-private platforms and partnerships to nurture innovation ecosystems, support innovative companies, and drive inclusive growth. And as we link these principles to the sustainable development goals of the UN, I look at the two that are really highlighted under that overarching principle of the GFCC, and those are the goals number 8 and 17. 8 being really the overarching one for our competitiveness agenda, namely, quote, promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. And number 17 being strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. So again, developing the policies, the strategies, but then implementing them to derive sustainable solutions at scale. So with that background, I'd like to turn to our first distinguished panelist and ask him to perhaps make a few overarching remarks about this integrative systemic agenda in Argentina for growth and innovation and scale. So let me ask you, Javier, the president of Argentina's National Institute for Industrial Technology, to make some framing remarks for us, and then I'll turn to the other panelists.
Bueno, excuse me, I will speak in Spanish. It's better for me, but I think that it's better for the audience. Bueno, muchas gracias sobre todo la invitación para participar en este evento y agradezco principalmente a la Fundación Fundese por la invitación, un esfuerzo grande que hace la Fundación para generar estos eventos que son muy buenos para el país. En el INTI y en el gobierno tenemos una certeza. La innovación es una condición necesaria para generar nuevas oportunidades de competitividad. La innovación es el verdadero motor del desarrollo, capaz de generar y sostener en el tiempo ciclos prolongados de crecimiento. Nuevos productos, nuevos procesos, nuevos medios de transporte, nuevas formas de organizar la producción cambian cuantitativa y cualitativamente las capacidades de la economía y de la sociedad. Las economías que han logrado mejorar fuertemente su desarrollo lo hicieron incorporando a su perfil productivo la dinámica evolutiva que le imprime la investigación, el desarrollo y la innovación, tornando más competitiva su estructura productiva y la capacidad exportadora de esos países. Un ejemplo es el esfuerzo en gasto de I+D que han hecho países desarrollados como Alemania, Estados Unidos, Japón, que va en el orden del 2,8 al 3,4% de su PBI, y países excepcionales como Corea del Sur o Israel, que superan los 4 puntos de inversión en PBI. El cambio estructural para la industria argentina es un desafío, siendo que en los últimos 20 años el patrón de especialización ha permanecido muy vinculado a ventajas competitivas estáticas, ya sea porque la producción está fuertemente ligada al mercado interno o porque continuamos estando especializados mayoritariamente en el uso intensivo de nuestros recursos naturales. Si bien hay casos exitosos en la Argentina de empresas competitivas y dinámicas, como lo es en biotecnología, en energía nuclear, satelital o servicios basados en conocimiento, el desafío es que este tipo de ejemplos se pueda derramar en todos los niveles de la estructura productiva argentina. En Argentina, la competitividad internacional se ha asociado generalmente con la capacidad de mantener o ampliar cuotas de mercado a partir de la baja de costos. Esta manera tradicional de concebir la competitividad resulta cada día más inapropiada para los desafíos de una economía mundial basada en conocimiento. Pero las ventajas competitivas verdaderamente que interesan y que hacen sustentable las ventajas competitivas son las ventajas dinámicas, las que generan nuevos productos, nuevos servicios, nuevos mercados. Y estas ventajas dinámicas se basan y apoyan generalmente en capacidades innovadoras. Son estas la base que sostiene la participación en los mercados internacionales en el largo plazo y aproximan las economías en desarrollo a los niveles tecnológicos y de bienestar social de las economías desarrolladas. Las ventajas competitivas basadas en la tecnología y la innovación garantizan un crecimiento compatible con una mejor distribución del ingreso y con un mejor posicionamiento a largo plazo. Estas son las ventajas competitivas sostenibles. Los países más competitivos son aquellos que cuentan con políticas activas con el objetivo de crear ventajas basadas en nuevos patrones competitivos, en nuevos conceptos de organización de la producción y nuevos paradigmas técnico-económicos donde la innovación y el desarrollo son centrales. Es necesario adaptarse a las nuevas tendencias de una economía en permanente transformación. Y en esto, la difusión de nuevos paradigmas de Industria 4.0 debe ser vista como un punto de partida estratégico necesario y la variable clave para repensar las políticas de desarrollo del siglo XXI. La velocidad con que las nuevas tecnologías disruptivas, como ser la nanotecnología, la biotecnología, la robótica, la inteligencia artificial, cambian transversalmente el sistema productivo, generando nuevos modelos de negocio y rápidamente dando de baja modelos de negocio que se creían estables. Las evidencias permiten ver claramente el rol estratégico que juega el sector público en la promoción de nuevas tecnologías. Este rol debe apuntar a programas públicos de inversión en economías del conocimiento, en la formación de recursos humanos altamente capacitados, en la consolidación de disciplinas científicas que estén alineadas con la estrategia, en la promoción de los institutos y centros de ciencia y tecnología y, por supuesto, en la articulación entre los distintos agentes del Estado y los privados. También es necesario promover dichas políticas en áreas y sectores prioritarios. focalizar, priorizar. Por ejemplo, en la Argentina, como en cualquier otro país, en sectores donde haya ventajas competitivas. En el caso de Argentina, alimentos, salud, energía, movilidad. Deben ser diseñados estímulos para innovar en dichas áreas y lograr una mejor articulación con los esfuerzos del sector privado. Las ventajas competitivas que tiene la Argentina o los países en sectores intensivos en recursos naturales o intensivos en recursos humanos o sus capacidades industriales son espacios de competitividad que deben ser aprovechados. Estas ventajas iniciales deben ser usadas para ir construyendo nuevas capacidades, diversificando la base productiva y la base tecnológica, de tal modo de depender cada vez menos de las ventajas no sustentables. También debemos construir una estrategia de desarrollo de largo plazo, para lo cual se requieren políticas de Estado que tengan continuidad en el tiempo y que permitan construir las capacidades tecnológicas que sostengan la innovación y la competitividad de nuestras economías. Las políticas de competitividad son, en primer lugar, políticas de innovación y de fomento para el cambio estructural hacia sectores modernos basados en conocimiento. Son políticas que involucran distintos actores: el Estado, los científicos, la investigación, los centros tecnológicos, los institutos tecnológicos y, por supuesto, las empresas. Desde el INTI, nuestra institución, estamos trabajando fuertemente en transformar la institución en un vector de transferencia de innovación y desarrollo para la industria. Al mismo tiempo, estamos trabajando activamente en que dichas capacidades sean parte de un sistema regional integrado de innovación que permita achicar las brechas que existen en las regiones argentinas. El nuevo rol del INTI en el ecosistema de innovación en Argentina tendrá un rol preponderante debido a la cercanía que tiene nuestra institución con los distintos sectores industriales. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Javier. We're going to come back and have some questions and discussions from your presentation, but it gave us a very important overview of the integration of innovation and competitive policies in Argentina. So I think we'll still stay in the Americas, and I'd like to turn to you, Heloisa. You have had a very diverse and distinguished career and continue to advance that career, really working at the juncture of policy and implementation at the highest levels of the Ministry of Trade and Industry in Brazil, and also now as the director of SEBRAE, the very innovative Brazilian agency for supporting and advancing the small and medium-sized enterprises. So share with us a little bit about your responsibilities, but very importantly, how you tackle this big problem from the federal level, working across a very, very large country to advance the growth of the enterprises that drive productivity and jobs in Brazil.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot for the invitation. Gracias por la invitación. In Brazil, we have big challenges, and at this moment we discuss a lot involving governments in several levels, politicians, entrepreneurs, and support institutions about the possibilities of open new perspectives to integrate in the digital economy. Because despite the gaps, we believe that we have lots of opportunities, but we need to overcome the challenges, the obstacles to be disruptive and to get the opportunity to skip phases. It's clear that the democratization, flexibility, and pervasiveness of the new technologies, such artificial intelligence, machine learning, it's possible to observe, to appropriate the good things in developing countries, in a developing country like Brazil. But these technologies are falling. The prices are, the costs are falling. They are creating new businesses, and the costs to create new business are falling dramatically also. So we are now working in order to overcome the challenges in trying to skip phases. We do believe that we can do that integrating instruments, integrating tools, and opening our economy and opening companies and governments to integrate startups and integrate small businesses in their business.
Thank you. You know, one of the innovative initiatives underway in Brazil through the GFCC partner, the Confederation of Industry, is the Mobilization of Innovation campaign that is bringing the leadership of the CEOs across all the companies in Brazil to really address many of these issues and combine forces to move forward. How are the large global enterprises in Brazil contributing to the agenda of SEBRAE? And how do you see building this sort of seamless continuum of collaboration where the larger firms can actually be first customers and help the emergence of these smaller new businesses in Brazil?
Yeah. This initiative is very important because join big companies, big innovative companies, national and transnational companies, and they look for new digital friendly laws and regulation, and they formulate principles and suggest new laws to the government, and they work together to build a proper human capital in Brazil. And now the civil society in Brazil is creating another movement to improve the digital economy, to improve the conditions, especially to the digital inclusion. It's very important because we have in Brazil estimated 500,000 vacancies, and we have 13 million unemployed people. So there is a huge challenge because we don't have people prepared to the digital transformation. And another important role of the big companies is the open innovation. And these companies in this movement are working in order to create opportunities to small businesses and to startups to join the efforts. They are opening laboratories, they are opening markets to improve the capacity of small business and startups to create with transparency of information, and they are putting data and APIs that allow the startups to integrate their platforms. And it's being a good example even to the government that can use the power, the purchase to open up their information to be used by startups and to create new solutions.
Thank you. Let me turn to Japan and to Asia. And Nakamura-san, you personally have had an amazing career working in the development of advanced technology and Hitachi and other firms, being a leader in the Japan Industrial Group of Kaidendran, and most recently having been the chairman of the Japan Science and Technology Agency that not only coordinates but identifies the emerging technologies and investments to spur the industrial capability and innovation capacity of Japan. Japan has a reputation for being very skilled at coordinating across the public, the private sectors, and coming to consensus around what needs to be done to advance the agenda of the country. So with a pretty great success record, could you share with us what you see going forward as some of the challenges in Japan and some of the new innovations that you're developing to ensure that you have this consensus and coordination? But is that enough today? That's a hard question for you.
Thank you, Deborah. And first, I'd like to congratulate GFCC to take scale up innovation and sustainable solutions. It's really most important agenda today of the world. And I'm partially involved in the activity of the United Nations to facilitate the STI for SDGs. And we are discussing the very similar topics like digital technology or roadmap, online platform, capacity building, and international collaboration. These are all to facilitate or harnessing science and technology innovation for sustainable development goals or inclusive development. And in Japan, we have just launched a national agenda called Society 5.0. It's really in line with the SDGs of the United Nations. And it's aiming to realize a human-centered society by integrating all the efforts of multi-stakeholders, empowered by data science and advanced ICTs like AI, IoT. And it's kind of a vision toward 2030 or 2050, but how to make real fruits from that. So we are discussing with the Japanese government to have roadmaps at national or subnational levels. And that should have not only vision, it's kind of it's like a Society 5.0, but also show pathways towards the 2030, 2050, and also concrete action plans for the next 5 to 10 years. And to do so, we have to make a gap analysis. We have to co-design the future, or collaboration, work among multi-stakeholders. And we do include a monitoring system. And then come back to gap analysis, and it's kind of a circular innovation system. And if it works, I think the Society 5.0 will be the real successful agenda. And Japan is, would like to be a championing country in this respect. And if you are interested in this kind of a discussion, that we are very happy to share the experiences and discuss how to make a best roadmaps. And another point I'd like to just mention is international collaboration. That's very, very important topic. And today, we are very happy to see that many countries are sharing our culture, Kaizen culture, business improvement Kaizen. And but it's not only the topic we can share with you. We would like to work on R&D from the bottom, and we have a number of programs working together with the developing countries, something like SADOREPS. SADOREPS is an example, sponsored by JICA and the JST. But it's not so easy. Research is very easy. But how to make a proof of concept and how to make a real business, that's a kind of a last 1 mile issue. Yes, we have got a new knowledge, we have got new technologies, but they do not reach to society. How to solve last 1 mile from lab issues? We are very happy to tackle with this topic with our partner countries. Thank you.
Let me just follow up on another dimension of what you're sharing with us this morning. And that is, we've heard, throughout the day, some of our colleagues have talked about this balance between competition. We're talking about competitiveness in our nations. We're talking about the global agenda and collaboration. Are there any cultural aspects, best practices, experiences in your career where you've really seen the crossing of competition into cooperation that's really made a huge difference in an industry or in some solution that needed all players to be at the table?
Competition and collaboration, they're both important. They should be kept in balance. And but I prefer collaboration than competition. I prefer, because first we have to collaborate to tackle the common challenges. Something like last 1 mile issues is a good example, or improvement of manufacturing process, Kaizen process, is another example. We do have a common challenges. We have to tackle them together. That leads to our prosperities. Okay. But from industrial perspective, yes, we are competing very, very severely, but it's an additional effort. How to compete with other enterprises, other countries. It's additional effort. We have to work on that. But first, we have to collaborate.
And turning to collaboration, Jorge, in your role now in the Ministry of Science and Technology in Argentina, you are, in order to really both build your strategy and implement it, you have tremendous coordination responsibilities, as well as using the power of your persuasion, the importance of this work, to actually bring the other players in Argentina together to support the research and development agenda that's so important. How are you doing that? Are there new coalitions? Are there new regulations? Or is this something that you think is moving forward in a kind of positive way right now? So share with us that coordination and collaboration imperative for science and technology in Argentina.
Thank you, Deborah. Good evening, everybody. Thanks, GFCC and Excelencia, for hosting this event in Argentina. It's really important for us. Going into your question, definitely I think that is something that is moving on very well. Maybe not as fast as we would like, but for sure, what we are trying to do in Argentina, and let me talk a little bit more broader on a long-term view, and I don't know how many people are from Argentina here. Okay, just abstract a few minutes, the rest of the panel, not thinking of the moment we are passing now, and just simply seeing what we're looking forward in the future. The way we see that we can scale up different innovative solutions and to have a country in which we can compare to the different developed countries is having a really change in our structural and our culture. And that is much more than just simply having new initiatives or new projects. Let me give you a few figures in order to understand this. So in Argentina, 75% of the budget invested in R&D comes from the public sector. Only 25% come from the private sector. But that means that the big effort is being done in order to have researchers and research institutions and entrepreneurs in order to generate knowledge. But there's low effort in order to use that knowledge. And if we don't use it, definitely we won't have any possible escalation of these new solutions so as to bring better services for the people or better products or services in our companies. And in that way, what we are trying to do in Argentina is working a lot in order to create a linkage between this scientific and technology system and the productive and the governments. And that is not only means that we need to make a process, but we need to make a lot of trust between the people that is in those institutions and creating a long-term bonding with them all. For sure, we need to work in structural reforms. If we don't have a good macroeconomical position, if we don't have better bureaucracy or less bureaucracy, if we are not an economy that is open to the world, if we don't have better logistics, better communications, it's going to be really hard in order to use knowledge so as to make new solutions. But all the government is working in that agenda. And once that is done, from the Ministry of Science and Technology, we're working really hard in order to be prepared for that demand and to have a better offering. In that way, we have, I think, three main initiatives that we're working on. The first one is seeing what is our high potential users of knowledge, and that for us are the ministries of the national government, and maybe 50 or 60 big companies from Argentina. There we have the potential in order to have like almost 60% of the investment in R&D from the demand. With them, we're working really hard in knowing what are their needs and in which way we can work with them. So for an example, we're working with the Ministry of Interior in making new solutions for drinkable water in order to go to really small towns and to go to some schools, rural schools, or in emergencies, putting down the cost of the drinkable water. On the other side, we're working with big national companies in order to have new products so as to get to new markets or certifying their products to get there. Then there's a second part of the picture in which we're launching now innovation labs. Those innovation labs pretend to put together all the scientific and technology system from one side, all the different sectors, but vertically defined at the table with the public sector also in order to know the regulations that we need to make or we need to take out, and to work at first collaboratively, as you said, in the common needs, and then to work individually with different companies in order to make solutions for them. And at the end, we want to make this a really collaborative thing of all the Argentinian society. So we have launched a platform that we call it Mercado de Innovación Argentina, Argentine Innovation Market, that we're relaunching it now, in which we don't want to put together the offer and the demand also, but we want to put there also the society. Allow them to be part of this creation of new solutions, being able to donate money, but being also able in order to know what are the innovations that we are creating in Argentina, and to also put there all the things that we need to work on. From that on, definitely we're working in two more things. One is financing all these projects. We're opening new lines of ways of financing innovation. Up to now, we were working only in direct investment from the government, but now we have opened indirect investment with tax credit. We are working with the private finance sectors in order to have more angel investors, venture capital funds, and we are also working in a new way of hiring different services in Argentina. And then it's a huge effort in order to coordinate between all the scientific and technological organizations like INTI here, in order to have an inter and multidisciplinary offering of the things, of the capabilities we have. We have great human resources, but we need to work together in order to give only one solution for the problems we have. That's the way we think we can work it for the future. That's the way we think we can create value for the whole world, to start exporting more, to create more jobs, and in the end to become a developed country also, and not be saying every time we want to stop being an undeveloped country in Argentina.
Thank you. Well, Chad, let me turn to you. And this is a little bit difficult because in your career, having been the CEO and chairman of DuPont, serving on many boards, chairman of Bank of America, now the chairman of Royal Dutch Shell, you've not only been a leader in business transformation. I know under your leadership, DuPont was really the first country in the world that took the whole environmental and safety and health initiative and built it into all your operations. You transformed DuPont really into a science materials leader in the world. And of course, on the public partnership side, you formed a coalition of companies from different sectors to begin to address the low carbon and climate. How have you, in your career and building up now into the future, been able to bring the different players from across different sectors to come together to do some of these very high risk initiatives that are taking us into the future?
Deborah, thanks very much. So let me focus on existing businesses like a Culligan Yeah, 'cause we talked a lot about entrepreneurs, innovation, but a lot of this comes from existing businesses. And let me share with you 3 things I find existing businesses generally do pretty well, and a 4th one they don't when it comes to innovation and sustainable innovation. The first one is the technology. Generally understand the technology pretty well because the company already practiced the technology. They sort it out. They test it. Pretty reasonable. Second, they usually have a lot of market data. They got some really bright young MBAs who've got all this market data so they can analyze it 6 ways from Sunday. A third, they generally do the financial analysis. There's some bright young MBAs do this financial analysis and have their cash holes and all this kind of stuff. Usually nobody actually goes and talks to a customer and see if they want the thing. And that's the biggest mistake. And there's a reason for that, because you don't want to come to the customer too early because you don't have a working prototype. You can't really explain it to them. And the project team is so concerned they're going to get a no, and their project will be shut down. So they put off as long as possible going to the customer. And generally when they go to the customer, they many times don't ask the right questions because they're very scared they're going to get the wrong answers. So at a business-to-business customer, you've got really 2 people you talk to. The person's going to buy it, and the person's going to use it. And so the buyer says, I like it because the price point's right. But if you haven't talked to the person who's got to use it, and they might say, this is not really what I want. It's really hard to get out and get that because the bright young MBA can't do that. You have to have people that have relationships with customers, can get inside and what's really going on. So I think that's the big missing piece. I think that would apply to a new innovative startup as well as it would to an existing company, but I've seen it over and over again. If I could just share one example from my Bank of America experience, and I'll close. We were very focused on our low-income customers, retail customers, individual consumers, because we didn't make any money there. And it was a very high percentage nature of our bank. It was a very high percentage of our customers. And so we wanted to go out and see the techniques that the successful low-income customers did. They actually paid their bills and we made a little bit of money on them, versus the majority, which we actually lost money on. And so we went into their homes and interviewed them in their homes. And we found one thing very much in common is that they needed a way to make sure they didn't have this instant go out and spend the money on something. Somehow have an emotional reason to go out and spend it they didn't really need it for. And so as we said, well, how do you deal with that? And it's when they got a little money ahead, they froze it in the freezer of their refrigeration unit because it takes a few hours to unthaw. So you cannot go out and do that. And by the way, the most common thing, you have to freeze it with something or you can unthaw it. So they generally green peas were what you froze it with because it took a long time to unthaw. And so that was a break, if you will, on them suddenly going out and buying something they didn't really need or using inappropriate, or one of the kids coming in and doing that. And we found our offerings were all just the opposite. We wanted to give them this mobile app where they could spend their money really quick. So everything we were offering was just the opposite of what they needed. So for this market segment, we had to have something that was just the opposite of everything else. So I think going out and doing that work, when the team said we're going to hire all these people to go out and interview people in their homes, we questioned it, but turned out to be one of the best investments we ever made.
So, Chad, let's just take that analogy in the model of understanding the needs of a segment of your customers and what you did to first understand it and then provide a solution to some of these issues we're talking about in scaling up innovation strategies for nations to drive growth. And do you think, let's just look at the United States, are we really looking at the right questions in terms of how we optimize our regulatory and tax and investment strategy? We're very concerned in the U.S. right now. We're de-investing in our basic research. And yet we know that's the seed corn for the future.
Yeah, I still think it comes back, going back and making sure what is the basic need you're trying to solve. And it's, so spend your research on something that's really needed. And the closer you can get to an actual customer, I think when there is a shift in a political election, like the last presidential election in the U.S., the winner did a lot more data and analysis on the voters than the competition did. So the winner of the U.S. presidential election, hired people who had never done political campaigns before and had the software, the social media part, and they got that data, and they actually created I've interviewed the guy that did it, 25,000 different pictures. So based on all the data they had on you, they would send you a picture that would be appealing to you to get you to read something to maybe make you ultimately donate, maybe ultimately vote. But no other campaign has subsegmented that much, but anything like that. So that's what I would say a practical way using social media to go to the individual customer. So I think whether you're talking about research, you're talking about public-private partnerships, don't forget to go to the actual customer and make sure they want whatever this public-private partnership is trying to do.
Thank you. So in the time we have left, I want to ask each of our panelists, drawing on their professional careers that have all been very diverse and what they're doing now, the customers that we're talking about are the respective citizens in your nations. And what do each of you think that the citizens in Brazil, in Argentina, in Japan, in the US really want in terms of moving forward into a very complex world with massive disruption through technology, jobs, and standard of living? And is there any one idea that you want to share with us that could be customer focused as we move forward in our innovation and competitiveness agendas through the GFCC, but in our own country? So I don't know who wants to start on that. Maybe we could have a volunteer, but I guess I'll start. Because I think from the work of the U.S. Council on Competitiveness, one of the things we've discovered over our almost 33-year history now is that the majority of citizens in the United States want a job with dignity and one that can support their families. And it's not necessarily a job that's going to take them into the highest echelons of banking or Silicon Valley. They want the dignity of having a job and to support their children, and their children could go to school to be educated and improve their life. That's really the narrative of our American dream, and it continues. And there's a lot of concern, are we going to be able to do that for the next generation? That's at the end of the day why the U.S. Council on Competitiveness is so focused on what are the drivers for inclusive economic growth, and what do we need to do to achieve that? So that's sort of my capture of what we need to do for the customers, our citizens. So we can just go
I can
either
go.
way.
Yeah, okay.
You're ready.
I grabbed the glove. Yeah. I think it's very similar to what you said. In Argentina, since this government got into power, we decided to have three big objectives: putting down poverty, making their life of the Argentinian more secure, and reuniting again our society. I think in the end, that is what all the different areas of the government are working in order to have. And for sure that we see that it's only possible if we create more jobs and value jobs in which people can have more dignity and in the end can support their families. So it's not an idea that we have from the Secretary of Science and Technology. It's an idea and an objective that all the government has, and we're working really integrated in order to have that. All the policies going into innovation, science, and technology are totally focused on that, trying to help all the rest of the government and doing that at the end.
If Deborah asked me what students do for sustainable and inclusive development, in Japan, I think students put emphasis on coexistence with nature and also respect for culture, local culture. It's under the very rapid aging in Japanese society, the revitalization of rural areas, rural industry is very, very important topic. And we have a number of good practices. For instance, the Shimokawa town in the northern Hokkaido Island has very good practices to revitalize the regional community. They just have 3,000 population, but respect for mountain, trees, nature, agriculture, and also introduce advanced ICTs. They can make the very, very local rural area most active area, most hopeful area in Japan today. So student participation is very important, I think.
Deborah, from the U.S. standpoint, I agree with you totally. I just might add that in addition to that job with dignity, respect, basic human needs being met, they want to think tomorrow just might be a little better than today. So I have a little bit of hope built in there too.
Actually, the hope is a very interesting component because without hope, we don't see the progress and the risk taking that we need to move forward.
Well, yes, many people are concerned about this disruptive technology. Actual works will be changing in the next years. This is a fact. So I think that it's very important for government to have policies giving training, changing universities, focusing in this new scientific and new work that the technology, actual technology will change this work. I think that the most important thing is the velocity of this change. This will be more higher. The change will be here, closer than we know. The government has to make this change quickly because the technology is around us. Companies are changing their economic model, their productive models. So I think the key is to make a big effort transforming workers' capacity with the training institutes, with universities, with all the actors in a country to transform workers in the new economic models that it will come.
Yeah, here. Yeah. Deborah,
A second round, I think.
Oh, yeah. I think that the digital inclusion is the first step to prepare human capital to the new era. And we have an obligation to prepare people to the digitalization and digital technologies are being more inclusive, more they are being democratized. Everything that can be digitized is being cheaper and more accessible. So we need to prepare our people not only to be users. In Brazil, we have heavy users of smartphones, but we aren't prepared to really be a part of this new moment. And we need to prepare people to this. We need to foster entrepreneurial education because we will not have so many jobs to a population that aren't included in this new era. So we need to prepare people to not to get a job, but to be entrepreneur. And I think that we need to foster collaborative innovation. We have lots of opportunities using competition, crowdsourcing, to solve crowdfunding, to solve social and economic problems. And we need to foster impact investing to solve social and environmental problems. That's it.
Second round.
I just wanted to add just a small thing, hearing what you both said about hope. And at the same time, I said that our three main objectives are still the same. As a public servant and being part of this government is part of my responsibility to at least try to give us all more hope. And that brings me back to recognizing the moment in which Argentina is facing and in the one we are now. And what I can say is that everyone at the government really recognizes that, and that we are doubling our effort and working much more harder than what we have been doing the last time in order to solve it and to enter finally in a sustainable growing agenda for the future and for a better Argentina.
I really acknowledge the GFCC's best practices in competitiveness strategy. And JST has recently edited Book of Japan's Practices for SDGs, something like that. Creating shared value by STI, business and social innovations. And this has a number of best practices, not only of the government, of the big enterprises, of the entrepreneurships, but also local community, NPO, NGO, citizens. So if you are interested, you can download this from Japan Science Technology's homepage. Thank you.
And Nakamura-san, can we ask you to do a summary of that for next year's best practices report for the GFCC as a contribution from Japan? Thank you.
Very tough requirement.
Thank you. Chad, last word.
First, it's been a great panel, great perspective. And I sense there is 90% agreement. There's a tremendous amount of agreement. A challenge going forward. Why don't we get a bunch of people in the room that don't agree with us, that are still objective, not protesting, but are actually, have other priorities than sustainable growth. And so us hear them and listen to them and see if we couldn't get even more creative solutions with maybe a different voice in the room.
So next year's GFCC, absolutely, we will do that on the program. And I'll just conclude by thanking our panelists and adding a little bit from my perspective, which I mentioned yesterday. As an archaeologist and anthropologist, I very much resonated with your comment about the importance of our cultures, the diversity of our cultures, the ability as we move into this intensely transformational technological world. Let's not lose what makes us unique as nations. We all adored the tango dancing last night and the spirit of Argentina and what we've learned from being in your great country. And we have to, as we move forward as competitiveness drivers, to keep that while we build inclusive prosperity in our country and around the world. So thank you all so much for your contributions, your insights, and being with us.